Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to continue with what we were learning yesterday, which was the second Mishnah in Berachot, in where we asked the question, when can you start saying Shema in the morning? Yesterday, we spoke about the determining factor was whether or not you could see the difference between the techelet, the blue, and the white in your tzitzit, or according to Rabbi Eliezer, between the green of the ground and the techelet of the heavens. What's interesting about both of them is, of course, these are things that you have readily available to determine the time. What's I think fascinating is there is a Gemara later on in Berachot that gives two other possible explanations, and neither of these require something that you have available, but actually it's things that are probably not so common for you to see. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir, later in the Gemara, I believe it's Daf Tet, say that what you really should be able to distinguish in order to know whether or not it's the right time to say Shema is the difference between a dog and a wolf. In other words, you see a dog and you can tell that he's a dog and not a wolf, or vice versa. You see a wolf and you can tell that he's a wolf and not a dog. And the other opinion is the difference between a chamor, a donkey, and a wild donkey. Now, obviously, both of these are much more difficult and therefore would presumably be a later time to say the Shema. And the question is, why did they choose to take something as an example that is harder to find? Meaning, it's not only more difficult in terms of to distinguish between a wolf and a dog, but also these are not things that people are going to see on a regular basis. You wake up in the morning, you can see your tzitzit, you can look out the window and you can see the sky and the grass. Most people are not going to see a wolf and a dog so early in the morning, or not going to necessarily see a donkey and a donkey and a wild donkey, certainly. So what are they really trying to teach us by giving us these sort of more difficult examples? I think there might be two possibilities. The first possibility is the difference between a dog and a wolf, or for that matter, a donkey and a wild donkey, are really not very big. They're not necessarily even superficial. It's only when you get to know the dog or get to know the wolf, if you can see the inside, then you can begin to really understand what the difference between these two animals are. And so perhaps what they're arguing is one of the important factors as we begin our new day is to realize that we shouldn't always look at things superficially. We should really try to get to know, whether it's the situation or another person, but get to know the essence, because the essence is what's really essential, obviously, and not just the superficial physical appearance. It reminds me of, for example, our custom when we get married. There is the bedecking, there is the lowering of the veil over the bride. Most people often mistakenly assume the reason why we have that custom is to not be like Jacob, who didn't know that he was marrying Leah instead of Rachel, that it was a mistake. But we don't lift up the veil to make sure we have the right bride. We put it down. And so the real source of the custom is Yitzchak, who lowered the veil on Rivka. And what he was saying in lowering the veil on Rivka, or Rivka lowering it herself, is to make the point that as beautiful as the Kala might be at this point in time, the reason why the Chatan is so attractive is what's hidden, that which cannot be seen, that he's gotten to know her, and that's what's really very special. And of course, that's special about all people, is what's inside of them, not necessarily their physical appearance. The other, idea that I think is going on here is the fact that we're talking about domesticated animals, a dog and a donkey, versus wild animals, a wolf and a wild donkey. And on one level, this continues the theme we spoke about yesterday. The theme yesterday was about being in servitude to Hashem, how our tzitzit was a sign that we were servants of God. So here too, the domesticated animal is more is more engaged in servitude than the wild animal. But there's a slight twist on that I think we should add. There is something called Mishle Isifis, and in that, there's a conversation between a wolf and a dog. And the wolf says to the dog, "What are you thinking? Why are you, staying cooped up and having a master? What do you need having a master for? Derech Agav, by the way, the Jewish people are sometimes referred to as rebelling because they can't even be like a donkey, a bull or a cow, that at least knows its master. That we not knowing our master is a big problem. So the wolf says, be like me, be free like me, run around. This is crazy to be obligated to a master. You're meant to be free. And I think the dog's response to the wolf is, you misunderstand what it means to be obligated to another entity, another person, or a situation. Sometimes to be obligated is not because we have to do it. To be obligated is because we want to do it, is that we are in love, right? Very often when we take upon certain tasks, and even though they may be obligatory, what they really show is the love that we have for the other person. And there's something too connected to our relationship with God. That it's true, on one hand, we are obligated, we are servants of God. But to be able to have a relationship with God is a very, very special thing. It's something that we want. And historically, that's what dogs wanted as well. They say that basically the first dogs, from an evolutionary point of view, were probably wolves that hung out by the campfire. And they hung out by the campfire maybe to get food. And those that were most genteel and were able to have a positive relationship with the humans came closer and closer and closer. And eventually they changed over time. The dogs literally are transformed because of their relationship with human beings. That's how dogs developed. And I think there's a parallel to our relationship with God, that we are transformed by our relationship with God. And perhaps that's what the rabbis are getting in offering these additional examples. Anyway, have a nice day.